Ladies and gentlemen, there is something beautifully sacred about a journey that doesn't fit into the mold of what others expect. From the time we are young, we are handed scripts, patterns, and timelines. Graduate by this age, marry by that age, succeed at this, avoid that, fit in, be normal, don't stand out too much. But what if your heart beats differently? What if your soul refuses to walk in straight lines and instead dances in circles, stumbles into detours, and climbs invisible hills no one else seems to see? What if your journey, in all its chaos and unpredictability, is exactly what it's supposed to be? You see, there is a subtle form of pressure that weighs on the spirit, not from what people say, but from what they expect in silence. It's in the way they look at you when you're not where they think you should be. It's in the questions that feel like accusations, still single, still figuring it out, still healing. They don't mean harm, but they don't understand that your journey isn't theirs to evaluate. Their timeline is not your truth. Their definition of success is not your blueprint, and their pace is not your rhythm. Some people will take 10 steps forward and make it look effortless. Others will crawl 1 inch at a time through storms you'll never even see. And yet both are moving, both are evolving, but only one of them may truly understand their path. You are not behind, you are not late. You are exactly where life needs you to be, to teach you what no book, no mentor, no motivational speech can. Life teaches in silence, it teaches in the wait, it teaches in the falling apart, and in the putting back together that only you can do. When we compare our story to others, we are holding up a mirror that reflects distortion. You see someone's success and compare it to your struggle, but you don't see the nights they cried, the years they almost gave up, the wounds they hide so well behind the highlights. Social media has taught us how to pretend, how to pose, how to filter, but not how to be real. And in chasing someone else's story, we abandon the power of our own. You were not born to repeat another person's life. You were born to write a new chapter, one that has never existed before you. And for that to happen, your journey must look different. It must feel unfamiliar. It must break you sometimes, and it must surprise you in ways you never imagined. You are allowed to take longer. You are allowed to walk slowly. You are allowed to be uncertain. Life is not a competition. It's a conversation between your soul and your courage. And sometimes the most courageous thing you can do is to keep going when no one claps for you, when no one sees the effort, when no one believes in the dream but you. That's when you know your journey is real, because you are walking it for you, not for the applause. There is a quiet kind of beauty in taking the road no one else wants. It's lonely, yes. It's confusing often, but it is yours, and when you finally reach the place you were meant to be, not because it's glamorous or impressive, but because it feels like home, you will understand why it couldn't have happened any other way. You needed the heartbreak, you needed the delay, you needed the failure that looked like the end but was really the beginning. All of it was working together to bring you back to yourself, and you will meet people along the way who will make you question everything. They will tell you what they think is best for you. They will say things like, just do this, or why don't you try that? And though advice can be helpful, it can also be harmful when it disconnects you from your intuition. No one else knows the conversations you've had with your pain. No one else knows the price you paid just to get out of bed this morning. No one else knows the quiet war you fight within your mind. So how could they possibly know the path you should take? Listen to yourself, really listen. What does your gut say when everyone else is shouting? What do you long for when you're not trying to impress anyone? What kind of life makes your heart ache in a good way? That's the map, that's your compass, and yes, it will look nothing like theirs. It's supposed to be that way. If everyone's journey looked the same, this world would be colorless, dull, and lifeless. Your uniqueness brings contrast, your delays bring depth, your detours bring dimension, and your story, when told with honesty, brings healing. Not just to you, but to everyone who hears it and says, "Me too." Do not fear being different. Fear being invisible to yourself. Fear forgetting your voice. Fear becoming a version of you that pleases the world but kills your spirit. The world doesn't need another perfect person. It needs someone brave enough to be real. Brave enough to say, "This is my path. It's not popular. It's not glamorous, but it's mine and I trust it." You are not broken because you took longer to figure things out. You are not lost because your path is winding and unclear. You are becoming, and becoming takes time. It takes falling and rising again. It takes pain and healing, sometimes in the same breath. It takes courage to walk away from what's safe and walk toward what's true. And the more you trust your own journey, the less you need anyone else's approval. Some people may walk beside you for a while and then they'll leave. That's okay. Not everyone is meant to understand your journey because it wasn't given to them. It was given to you. Every challenge, every lesson, every miracle, it's yours. And if you can embrace that, if you can stop wishing for someone else's life and start honoring your own, you will be free. Not because everything will be perfect, but because you'll finally realize it never needed to be. There's a certain silence that only pain can bring, the kind that makes everything else blur out until all that's left is you, sitting with a version of yourself you never thought you'd meet. And in that silence, something sacred begins, not because it feels good, not because it makes sense, but because that pain, the very thing you wish you could run from, is actually trying to give you something you never knew you needed. It doesn't arrive to punish you. It's not life turning against you. It's life turning you into something deeper, something braver, something softer and stronger at the same time. You don't always realize it while you're in it. Most of the time, pain just feels like emptiness, like loss, like confusion. It shakes you out of the rhythm you once trusted, and it whispers lies that sound so convincing, that you're not enough, that you've failed, that you'll never feel whole again. But the truth is, pain is not there to tear you apart. It's there to remove what no longer serves you, to strip away the illusion, to reveal the core of who you really are beneath all the layers you've built just to survive. And yes, it hurts, because growth always does. You might not understand the purpose of the heartbreak when your hands are still trembling from what you just lost. You might not see the lesson in the betrayal when you're still trying to catch your breath. You might not know why the door closed or why that chapter ended before you were ready, but every painful moment is doing something in you. It's carving out space. It's making room. It's shifting your view of the world, and in doing so, it's giving you access to a kind of strength that can't be taught in comfort. There's a misconception that healing only begins when the pain ends. But the truth is, healing begins the moment pain enters and you choose to stay with yourself instead of running. The moment you stop numbing. The moment you stop pretending you're fine when you're not. Pain makes you honest. It reveals the parts of you that have been neglected, abandoned, or silenced. And as uncomfortable as it is, it's only through that raw honesty that transformation begins. You learn to sit with your sadness. You learn to talk to your anger. You learn to hold your own hand when no one else does. And suddenly, you're no longer afraid of yourself. That's where the real power comes from. Pain doesn't always come loudly. Sometimes it's the quiet realization that things will never go back to the way they were. Sometimes it's the slow grief of becoming someone new. Sometimes it's the guilt of growing past people you once called home. And yet, pain also has this unbelievable ability to birth purpose. The most compassionate people you'll ever meet are the ones who have been through the darkest nights. The most resilient souls are the ones who were told they wouldn't make it, but did. The most radiant light often comes from a heart that has been shattered and rebuilt piece by piece, not with perfection, but with deep, intentional love. If you've ever felt like your world fell apart and you had nothing left to give, and yet, somehow, you kept going, that wasn't weakness. That was preparation. You were being shaped for something greater than comfort. You were being prepared for wisdom, for empathy, for depth, for impact. You see, the world doesn't need people who have had it easy. It needs people who have been through the fire and still choose to be kind. People who have bled and still choose to heal others. People who have wept and still choose to sing. That kind of strength cannot be faked. It cannot be taught. It must be lived. Sometimes we look at our past and all we see is a timeline of suffering. But if you step back, if you zoom out just a little, you might begin to see a different picture. You'll start to notice how every painful moment led you to a new realization, how every setback turned into a setup for something better, how every closed door redirected you to a path more aligned with your soul. And though you wouldn't wish for the pain to come again, you might just find yourself grateful for what it made you. Because without it, you might have never met the truest version of yourself. We live in a world that glamorizes quick fixes and avoids discomfort at all costs. But growth doesn't come from shortcuts. It comes from breaking, from falling, from choosing to get back up even when everything inside of you says it's easier to stay down. The strongest version of you will not be the one who has never suffered. It will be the one who suffered and stayed soft, who suffered and stayed kind, who suffered and still found beauty in the middle of the mess. Pain will introduce you to parts of yourself you didn't know existed. You'll learn how to love yourself not just in your best moments, but in your worst ones too. You'll begin to see yourself not as broken, but as becoming. And slowly, without even realizing it, you'll build a life not in spite of the pain, but because of it. You'll find meaning not by escaping your wounds, but by embracing them. You'll understand that you are not what happened to you, but what you chose to become through it all. There is purpose in your pain, even if you can't see it yet. One day, your story will be someone else's survival guide. One day, your journey will give someone else permission to heal. And when that day comes, you'll understand that every tear, every scar, every sleepless night wasn't wasted. It was preparation for a life that has weight, depth, and real, soul-level power. There comes a point in your life where you must choose between being accepted by others or being true to yourself. And that decision, as simple as it may sound, will shape everything. The way you wake up, the way you speak, the way you dream, because walking your own path doesn't just require courage. It demands the kind of strength that most people never prepare you for. The kind where you learn to let go of applause, approval, and all the affirmations you thought you needed to feel worthy. It's a quiet rebellion, a soft uprising of your spirit saying, I choose me, even if no one claps. Validation is seductive. It makes you feel seen, liked, accepted. And in a world that constantly ranks your worth based on numbers, opinions, and trends, it's easy to become addicted to it. You post something and wait for the likes. You say something and look for nods of agreement. You make a decision and then immediately question yourself if others don't approve. Slowly, without realizing it, your life stops being yours. You become a mirror reflecting what others want to see instead of a light shining from who you really are. And the danger in that is simple. The more you chase validation, the more you abandon yourself. There is a price to be paid for pleasing everyone, and that price is authenticity. When you constantly ask for permission to be who you are, you lose the ability to trust your own voice. You doubt your instincts. You second-guess your passions. You delay your dreams. And eventually, you shrink yourself to fit into spaces you were never meant to belong to. But the truth is, not everyone will understand your journey. Not everyone will believe in your vision, and they're not supposed to, because your journey was never theirs to understand. It was yours to walk. You don't need to wait for someone to tell you that your dream is valid. You don't need the world to give you a gold star before you take your first step. Sometimes you just need to believe so deeply in what you feel that no one else's disbelief can shake it. Because when you move from your heart, when your actions are rooted in your truth, you create a kind of momentum that no external approval can match. And that momentum is what builds legacies, not applause. We're often told to be humble, to stay quiet, to not make too much noise about what we love. But humility doesn't mean dimming your light. It means knowing your worth without having to shout it. It means standing tall in your truth even when no one else sees it yet. And yes, it's lonely sometimes, because the moment you stop seeking validation, you also stop being part of the crowd. You start walking in a direction that others may not understand, But that's the point. Growth doesn't happen where it's comfortable. It happens where it's real. Imagine a flower that refuses to bloom unless the world claps. It would never blossom. It would never know its own beauty. That's what happens to so many people. They wait for someone to say, "You're good enough," before they try. They wait for the perfect conditions, the right audience, the exact moment when no one will criticize. But life doesn't work like that. Sometimes you bloom in silence. Sometimes you rise when no one's watching. And in those quiet moments, you begin to realize that your journey is not a performance. It's a becoming. The people who change the world, who truly make a difference, are not the ones who waited for validation. They are the ones who moved forward when no one else believed. They are the ones who held onto their dreams even when they were called foolish, unrealistic, or too much. They are the ones who decided that their voice mattered, even if it trembled. And that decision, that unshakable belief in their own value, that's what set them free. When you let go of needing validation, something beautiful happens. You begin to trust yourself again. You start making choices based on alignment, not approval. You start doing things because they feel right in your soul, not because they'll look good to others. And that's when you begin to live a life that is yours. A life that's messy, maybe unconventional, but deeply fulfilling. Because it's real, and there's nothing more powerful than a person who is fully themselves, unapologetically, even if it means standing alone. We often talk about self, love like it's an emotion, but it's also a decision. A daily, sometimes hourly decision to show up for yourself even when no one else does. To keep going even when you're misunderstood. To keep believing even when the noise around you says otherwise. Self-love is knowing that your journey doesn't need to look like anyone else's to be worthy. That your timeline doesn't need to match theirs to be meaningful. That your success isn't less just because someone else reached theirs earlier. There's a kind of freedom in not needing everyone to get it. A kind of peace in walking your path without needing an audience. And when you stop living for applause, you start listening to your own rhythm. You start hearing the whisper of your soul telling you where to go next. You begin to realize that the most powerful validation isn't external. It's the one that says, "I see you. I believe in you. I am proud of you." And that voice, it's yours, so let them misunderstand you. Let them call you strange, let them laugh, let them doubt. Your job is not to convince anyone. Your job is to keep walking, to keep showing up, to keep becoming. Because one day, the same people who didn't understand your path will look at you and say, "How did you do it?" And you'll smile, not out of pride, but out of peace. Because you'll know you did it without needing to be chosen. You chose yourself. Sometimes the loudest silence you'll ever hear is the one that follows your effort. You give your all. You pour your soul into something and then nothing. No claps, no praise, no acknowledgement. Just silence. And that silence can feel like a wall, like a rejection, like proof that what you're doing doesn't matter. But it's not. That silence is not a stop sign. It's a test. A whisper from the universe asking, "How badly do you want this when no one is watching?" Because commitment isn't forged in applause. It's built in solitude, in the quiet, in the space where your voice is the only one cheering you on. Every person who ever became something greater than their circumstances had to walk through that silence. They had to continue when there was no recognition, when their name wasn't known, when their efforts went unnoticed. And that's where real growth lives, in the moments where quitting seems easy, where giving up seems logical, but something inside says, "Keep going." That something is commitment, not motivation, because motivation fades. Not passion, because passion wavers, but commitment, the decision you make long after the mood in which you made it has left. It's easy to be committed when people are encouraging you. It's easy to keep moving when you're receiving results and validation. But what about the times when no one sees your progress? What about the days when everything you're doing feels invisible? Those are the days that count, because anyone can show up when it's easy. But those who truly transform their lives are the ones who show up when it's hard, when it's quiet, when the world seems to have turned its back. They understand that the journey is not about being seen. It's about being true. You see, growth doesn't always come with fireworks. Sometimes it comes with early mornings where you drag yourself out of bed with no reward waiting. Sometimes it looks like doing the same thing over and over, not knowing if it's even working, but doing it anyway because you believe in where it's taking you. It's waking up day after day with tired eyes and a hopeful heart, because deep down you know that effort compounds, even when the results are silent. There's something sacred about those unseen moments. The late nights spent working on your craft, the private battles you fight with yourself, doubt, the tears that fall when no one's around to comfort you. These are not wasted experiences. These are the bricks of your foundation. This is where the real version of you is built. The one who doesn't depend on applause to keep moving, who doesn't need others to validate your vision before you pursue it, who understands that commitment is an act of love, not performance. And yes, it's exhausting. It's lonely. There are days you will question your path, your choices, your purpose. You'll ask yourself if it's worth it, if you're delusional for believing in something that no one else seems to see. But that's exactly why it's worth it, because it's yours, your dream, your story, your journey. No one else can walk it for you. No one else has your vision, your fire, your unique way of bringing something to life. So even if the world is silent, your voice matters, your effort matters, you matter. We live in a world where everyone wants results fast, where consistency is celebrated only when it's flashy, when it's rewarded. But what about the quiet workers, the ones who show up every day with no one watching, the ones who build in the dark so they can shine in their own time? These are the people who succeed, not because they were lucky or talented or well connected, but because they refused to stop. They kept showing up, kept believing, kept giving everything even when it looked like they were getting nothing in return. There's a kind of strength in those who remain committed without attention. It's a deep, grounded power, and knowing that what they're doing is not just for show, it's for growth, for healing, for becoming, and in that process, they develop something that no one can take away from them: self-trust. They trust that their work will bear fruit in time. They trust that their path, though slow and silent, is still leading somewhere, and most importantly, they trust themselves enough to keep going, even through the silence. Don't measure your progress by the volume of noise around you. Measure it by the weight of your consistency. Measure it by how many times you showed up when you didn't feel like it. Measure it by the nights you stayed faithful to your purpose when it would have been easier to quit. Because these are the true milestones, not likes, not comments, not recognition, but resilience, grit, heart, and that kind of commitment, that quiet, relentless dedication, is what separates those who wish from those who become. You don't need the world to see you to be valuable. You don't need the crowd to believe in you for your dream to matter. What you need is to keep watering your seeds even when the soil shows no sign of life. Because growth doesn't always happen on the surface. Sometimes it's happening deep within where no one can see it. But where everything is being prepared, the roots are growing, the foundation is forming. And in time the bloom will come, but it won't be for the applause. It will be for the journey, because the journey itself is the reward, the discipline you build, the integrity you hold, the self-respect you gain by honoring your path even in silence. These are the things no one can give you, and no one can take away, so stay committed, not for the attention, not for the validation, but for the quiet strength that comes from knowing you didn't give up, that you honored your path even when the world had nothing to say, and that in itself is more powerful than any praise you could ever receive.